I come from a small country village, and yeah, conservative background, just everybody learning a trade or setting a small business, and so I was a tradesman. Did that for a long time, and then then traveled for a bit, and then moved to Amsterdam, and looking to do something a bit more positive, which is Greenpeace at the time, and they're a very exciting group. Active activism, which really appealed to me, like going on a boat and going out or on land and actually be part of an action, and rather than talking and words and writing good campaign slogans and stuff like that, which is not really my strength. My strength is much more into actually being part of the actuality and practicalities of it all. Then I started working for them as in their office, actually sorting out little accounts, you know, as a volunteer. So I sort of grew into it, really. It didn't come from an activist background at all. You know, I was either going to be a fireman, which I wanted to be, or I was going to go to sea and trying to make some positive changes. I like to go back when we first joined the Rainbow Warrior, which is in early 1985 in Jacksonville, Florida. And the boat, my partner Bunny and I joined together, and the boat was had been laid up for a while, and we put a new rig on it. The skipper at the time, Peter Wilcox, was really pushed to get a sail rig on it. So the organization was quite small, didn't have a hell of a lot of money, so we ended up doing a lot of the work. We probably did about 70 or 80% of putting that rig on as a crew. And that was a fantastic thing to do. And then we put this 4.5 rig on the ship. And she had this lovely hull. It's not like some of the modern fishing boats that are sort of bulldozers and bulldoze themselves through the oceans. The old ship had some lovely lines, and that came out when the first time we took her out for a sail. We got her up to 11, 12 knots just on the coast of Florida, you know, and she was just roaring away. As a group of people on the boat, that was actually quite that formed us into quite a coherent crew, because we knew our skills, and we'd already worked alongside on the wharf for a couple of months together as a team and gone through a few ups and downs. And then we got this boat and we got it sailing, you know, and then off we go. Our first mission was to go to the Marshall Islands and help to evacuate those people, because we were also apprehensive about it, like, is this just somebody's dream, and are we going to force ourselves onto these people, or you know, how is this all going to work? But it became very clear that it was this was the Marshallese, the Rongelap peace plan, you know, and we were a last resort, and we can do it, and we got the ship for it. And so then when we got there, half the village was sort of taken down, but the other half was still standing up in terms of the houses, and there was another day or a day and a half of discussions and big meetings there were about 350 people there. And you have to remember that they leave their land, and that's the land they're born on, and their land rights go through the mothers. So every Rongelap peace person has a piece of land when they're born already. They have a land right to build and to live and to grow some veggies. As soon as they left Rongelap, they didn't have that anymore. You know, it's one thing is to yes, but then there's the boat, and now we're going to go, and then we loaded the ship, and there was everything, you know, little babies, and you know, they had deformed kids from the nuclear fallout. You know, they were still working its way through the generations, which was hard to see. And they were all, so when you walk through the village, you don't see any of that, because they're all hidden inside, you know, they're inside the house and stuff. But as soon as we started bringing them up on the boat, it's like all these kids and people with thyroid problems, and it was just right there in front of us, you know. So we got, actually, it was we totally underestimated this as a crew, how that was going to affect us, and it did in a big way. The first trip we were in there, and then I stayed on Medjato, the new island, and the crew, the rest of the ship went back and forth to pick up the rest of the team, and I stayed on the island to just help build some toilets. And they had one structure already, so they had some shelter, and because they literally arrived with all their houses and sheets of plywood and 2x4 and corrugated iron for all those people on the beach. That's how we left it. When we left, because we did have a schedule to go to Mururoa. Okay, bye now. No, we get involved with them we stayed involved with them for 10 days or however long that whole period was, maybe 2 weeks, and then we left them behind and felt kind of bad about that. You know, oh, now these people are just, you know, and off we go, you know, with this big tool that we had, which was the Rainbow Warrior. They're still living with it, you know. So. Yeah. Their environment is not contaminated anymore, so that's why they left. Everything else is worse. You know, their fabric of their community is now as a community spread out over several, well, it's Majato is their sort of baseline, but then there's a large population living in Majuro and there's an Ibai, so because they don't have a home anymore to focus on, to center around, you know, and the population grows, and we all felt like we need to do something and make contact again and see how they were doing. Bunny and I went back there actually 2 years later and stayed with them for about 3-4 months. And then we wrote a proposal after that 3 months, and the biggest need that we saw was a boat for them, and that they had their own boat. So then we wrote a proposal to get a budget together to how much it cost, and we found a boat builder in Majato. We got some from the guys from the island to help build the boat, so they had a buy-in, and we thought about all those things, you know, and we learned that this was all important, but in a couple of months there. And we got the boat, and then they used it for 10-15 years because it was their boat, and they helped build it. And it was really successful transportation. Nice. And we're still involved with those people, you know, now. Over all those years, we're still in touch with them and helped them out with a few different projects and brought water tanks to them. And I think the Rongelap experience was the bigger one of all of that. So if all of us, we sort of walked away from that thinking, oh shit, our next goal, which was stop nuclear testing altogether in the Pacific, and specifically the French nuclear testing. So I stayed working after the bombing. I stayed working for the organization. We had to dispose of the old ship and scuttle her and do all of that, and that took a bit of time. And then over the last, up to right this very moment, my heart is still very much with the organization, I must say, and I still think it does amazing work. And sometimes, you know, it gets bad press because the organization makes mistakes like any organization. It's not perfect. And because it's made up of people, you know, and people mess up sometimes. But the heart of the organization is still there, and it's still very strong, and it's still doing the right thing. Just to move on from that, you know, and I think now, I mean, the nuclear industry and the nuclear issues is still a big issue, but I mean, we have to face reality, and the biggest issue in our time is climate change. I see a lot of young kids really concerned and really getting involved. There's some great campaigns going on. Activism today I think is very strong, as it ever was.